Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. Today we're here with Abe Shreve, who is the CEO of Business Maps Training and Coaching, and also hosts a podcast called Choose Difficult and Coaching Lifeline. How are you, Abe?
Great. Really happy to be here.
Right before we jumped in, we were talking fly fishing. If only this was a fly fishing podcast.
Man, couldn't we do it?
Alas. It is
Another
not.
day. We'll do this on the river sometime.
Tell us a little bit about your story, and then Business Maps and how you've come into this role and what you do.
Yeah. Well, I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, my journey in what we do started with being a consumer of what we do, and I owned a construction company back in 2008. I don't know if you remember, but there was a blip.
No little blip
in the economy. I blacked out for like 7 years.
But
Something
it was to do with real estate.
Yeah. It was a great time to own a construction company. And so at that time, I found coaching. I mean, we had gone from printing checks and kind of getting paid at every part of the transaction to actually having to figure out how to earn a living. And I found coaching, and it was profoundly helpful for me. And so along the way, I decided maybe I want to give this a go, and that's kind of what got me into it. I was coaching for a specific organization, Keller Williams Real Estate Company. Gary Keller, the founder of that company, built the largest real estate company in the world because he said we're a training and coaching company, thinly disguised as a real estate company.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very fortunate in my life to have some excellent mentors and great coaches, and found my way to coaching. Gary has a small mastermind of his top performers, and I was fortunate enough to find my way into that group and got to know him. And it was through working with his top people and getting to know him a little bit that we decided we'd launch this business.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And there's a training, there's coaching, there's mentoring. How did you guys figure out and focus on, I guess at the beginning it's words, right? Like, is this training? Is this coaching?
Yeah.
How do you build and strategize this business from the ground up?
Well, first I rethought my stance on medical marijuana. I think you're naming challenge number one, right? It's the how do we say it and say it succinctly. And I would say the greatest challenge of my professional life is how do you create a coaching model and a coaching system that doesn't overpower the dialogues that are being had? And how do you not teach your personality?
Yeah.
And, if you're going to grow a business, you're going to need to succeed through others. And so I would say the first couple of years, that was the whole focus, was developing how we train our coaches and that model. And I think we've done a really good job at that. But quickly, as fast as I could, I moved it away from all the things that I did into a study of what our coaches are doing all the time, because they're on the front line.
Yeah.
I still coach a few folks because I don't ever want to fall out of touch with what it is.
Yeah.
Coaching is different than any other thing. It's different than mentorship. It's different than leadership, and there's 1,000 definitions. But I would say our definition of coaching is it's a sacred partnership, and the first step for us is to get clear on the objectives of the person that we're working with. First and foremost, and we have some models that we're using to do that, to understand mission, vision, values, perspectives, your how you actually plan your business, how you track it. That's an important thing, of course, and then finding and hiring talent. We have some advanced behavioral assessment tools that we use for that. And then a culture of accountability. Like, what are you doing to actually, keep things moving forward? And it's a rotation through those models that makes up the core philosophy of how we look at business. Then on the coaching side, we have, some communicative models and things that we use. But the best coaching is when it is in perfect partnership. Yeah. So, it's not that I know and you don't know. I'm not the expert in your business. Together we'll get really clear, and you would be surprised at the number of people that have great success and lack clarity. And I'm just going to say this right now too. We're no different. I don't know that. I'm not sure a lot of people that do what I do are saying that openly, but I think we probably all should. Just because our business is the business of business doesn't mean that we don't have the same challenges. And so for us, one of our models we named Fight for Clarity, because it is a forever fight. You know, the second you got something figured out and you're launching something new, we got to go back into the fight for clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it seems like it's a evolving, moving target, right?
Yeah.
If you rest on your laurels, people decipher that and be like, that was not very good coaching. That was not clear. So you guys have to stay sharp and well honed. And in life, you know, you've got life coaches, business coaches, sports coaches, you know, kind of military coaches, all sorts. And it's tough to define unless it's happening and you know you're getting coached really well, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's business, life, Little League football. There's folks that do it poorly, and there's folks that do it really well. I'd be interested in, like, when people engage your guys' services, is the dumpster on fire? Are they doing pretty good and they want to go do a little bit better? Are they going in the wrong direction? When do people think that they need what you guys provide?
Let me give you two answers, not to be elusive, but the truth is it's different for everyone. A lot of times people engage us when they discover what we do. However, my experience, especially in the entrepreneurial space, is that someone always has a dumpster fire and they always have something they're winning at. And typically an entrepreneur is their own worst critic. And the objective of a coach is, you know, where you may come to me, this thing's fallen apart. My objective is to first go into what is the business and really explore it. We have some tools that we use. So let's say you and I are on a coaching call. We're both looking at what we call our coaching scorecard, and we're defining and building out your economic model. I'm looking at your reporting. We're looking at what you use to gauge success, how you got here, and what's in the way. And my experience has been most people's business isn't broken to the level that they think it is, nor is it succeeding to the level that they think it is. And so we see people that come at kind of all phases of business. But again, this is the unique challenge of coaching. If I just taught a program, then I would just plug you in. Oh, you're step 4. You're step 4, and that's who you are. But again, that's not coaching. Coaching is I'm going to meet you on the front line of your business every single week, and we're gonna get clear on what you're working on, and get clear on what I'm going to hold you accountable to next week. We're going to get clear on what that accountability looks like. It is not one size fits all. You know, This is kind of funny. Can I talk about this for a minute? Let's talk about accountability. Because in the coaching space, as coaches, and I'm saying I'm including us in this, but really I'd like to believe we're not this way. But as coaches, we like to act like we jump on your throat every call, right? High driver, kind of all that stuff. And there's certainly a behavioral fit for a coach. But the best coaching calls, we're going to begin with the commitments made last week. We're going to, and we're going to check we call them the 10,000 foot red flags. We're going to look at the key metrics we've agreed upon every week to look at. And then we're also going to gain agenda for what we're going to work on this week. And so I may say to you, okay, this is your commitment, and if you don't do it, you're going to have to write a check to the political candidate that you hate for $5,000. And if someone says that to me, we're done. Like you've just disinherited yourself from my interests.
Yeah.
So it has to come from you, what the accountability is and what it means. And a great coach will bring that out and then have a way for us to catalog it and for us both to see it, and would you agree that business under the best of circumstances is difficult?
Yeah.
So it changes week to week. And so when we built our coaching curriculum, we call it the art and science of coaching, because the science, there's a biology to business, unemotional, unapologetic, like the P&L.
Yeah.
Every business needs a P&L. The change happens in the art, and that's helping people as they navigate through the science, the different components, the biology of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So early days, you've got your framework and how you're going to coach. folks. You got a website, you got the right words and the right sentences, and you're conveying a message, right? At some point, you're going to get a client and a customer. What was it like in the early days as you guys started getting folks? How did you match? How did you determine fit? How did you onboard? And how has that evolved over the years?
Well, it's a little bit of a funny story because in the beginning, many years ago, I was in a sales business and we prospected on the phone. And I set that up for this business. I set up, I had virtual assistants and we kind of built this whole calling system and it was 100% fail. Not a little fail, 100%, zero result. And I remember I was having a call with my partner in this business, Gary Keller, and he said, "How's it going?" And I said, "It's 100% failure on the sales side." And what I discovered is you don't sell coaching, you demonstrate coaching.
Okay.
And by that I mean that when people have an experience where with someone where they get clarity or they understand that I'm not your adversarial leader, that we're going to get together and do this together and figure this out together and accelerate your learning curve. When people discover that, coaching becomes more of a natural fit. And so the question then becomes, how do you demonstrate coaching? That's the thing for us. And we have a formula for it. We track all our numbers, and we know that when we demonstrate coaching in a meaningful way to 10 people, 4 will sign up for a business assessment that we use, and then 2 will sign up for coaching. And so for us, it starts with training and contribution, and demonstrating coaching, and then I say it kind of comes naturally, but that first part of the equation, that's where all the effort lies now.
Okay, so that's good to figure that out.
Yeah,
not 100% failure anymore.
Right. And, that's good.
You whittle. It sounds like 2 out of 10. Okay.
Yeah. We're in every state in the U.S. now, and we actually started to have some success worldwide, and quickly discovered that isn't what we want. Like it's a tax nightmare out there, and there's challenges that come in different states and different industries, and so I think we've also done a good job of building a community of coaches where anyone's free and encouraged to bring back what they're learning and to challenge whatever we're doing.
Yeah. All right. I'm interested in kind of now that you've got your clients and they've gone through the formula and the assessment and it's a good match, good fit. If you're going to be a coach or a consultant or just offer advice in general in life, you have a specific personality, but you probably are confident, right? Because of the work you've done and your understanding of that field or that problem. How many clients would a coach have? How many calls a day would they do? I assume it's not back to back, right? Because they've got to do back to back all day.
Yeah. So, well, not all day.
Okay.
So your question is how to, you kind of, there were 2 questions, though one wasn't stated like a question. I want to make sure I get it. What is kind of the profile of a coach?
Yes.
And then how does what does the day look like in the life of a coach?
Perfect.
Is that
yep.
Okay? So you would think, or maybe some would think that every coach is a type A, driver, red personality, and we certainly have some of those. And the unique challenge to those is if you lack self-awareness and that's your behavioral style, you're just going to consume the humans. And if you come up against another high driver and you don't have the communicative abilities to let them lead, then they'll be done with you quickly.
Yeah.
It's an extremely skill-based endeavor. And so, which is again why it's been the greatest challenge to create that coaching curriculum.
Yeah.
And so when you say what's the behavioral match, what we're looking for are people that have had success in business, people that subscribe to coaching, people that are ever learning. But here's what we've also discovered. It's really not uncommon for someone new to come, and maybe they've had great success in a business. But Garrett, success in a business doesn't mean you're going to be good at helping someone else.
Yeah.
You might just be a jerk, or you might just, you might just give seminars every call for 4 weeks and run out of material.
Yeah.
And you learn at some point that you're going to have to follow some coaching models and let them, they're going to have to lead these dialogues. And so for us, we're looking for people that have had success, that lean into the learning. All of our coaches are in a head coaching program, meaning that they work in a triad. There's people that are listening to the calls we're in constant improvement, constant learning, and constant feedback. We heavily survey our clients, and we actually have coaches with every profile. And what's interesting for those that may be thinking, maybe I want to be a coach, almost always the concern is, well, I don't know someone's business, which happens to me all the time, by the way. You can't know every business.
Yeah.
However, the quicker I get to your business, that's what's really important. I need to know enough that I'm valid enough with you to start. But then the process of understanding your business will determine if you want to stick with me. And I think that's really where it's won. I think that's why those that just have a really rigid methodology, I'm just going to plug you in. I think by and large, entrepreneurs, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself and my experience, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We have a tendency not to continue with those programs, though we like them. They're good books, but our business doesn't line up in just 5 easy steps. There's continual adjustment. And so a coaching fit means that I'm going to understand your business. We're going to make commitments together, and I'm not going to orphan the commitments. I think that's the kiss of death, by the way. You go through a coaching experience with someone, and it feels like the very next call you're just starting over. They didn't listen.
Yeah.
How long would you stick with someone like that?
1 week.
1 week, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the reason we use the tools that we do. And so once you've got a person that has proven themselves, and our certification is not quick. It's 2 full days on site, or we pivoted during the pandemic, but we're going back to on site, and then it's 12 weeks, and it's pretty heavy because it's important what we do. Yeah. There's a lot at risk. However, we really do have some amazing coaches and amazing people, and so most coaching calls are about 30 minutes, and there's the unique moment where somebody wants more than that. They want an hour. Not every coach can do that. Not every client actually wants that. They think that they do. 30 minutes, when you have a way of following the plan and the dialogue, 30 minutes a week really gets it done. The objective is to get in, follow up, identify challenges, and get clear going into the next week. And then the coach's job is to also help you see where we are lining up to your future objective.
Yeah.
And to work through that. And so a coach can and we teach them to go back to back, because there's a rhythm to coaching. And if you're using tools, you're not just having conversations. If you and I can both look at the screen, and I can see your financials, and I can see your sales metrics, and I can see your organization, and we can follow along, that really clears you and I up to get to what we need to talk about. And so what we tell our coaches is don't do more than 4 in a row. We tell them take the break, because great coaches that love this, it's addicting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you a quick funny story about me, and part of the reason that we discovered this is I've been married to my wife for 26 years. She's my greatest joy, and we have 4 children, and I go home, I'm all wound up. I've been talking to you crazies for all day, and it's just got me going, right? And it's 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out, and I come in, and we just have these intense, powered conversations, and I go home, and it's hard to dismount.
Yeah.
And I want to know why the 8-year-old didn't write out his goals. And my wife will say, here, we just need you to do the dishes.
Yeah.
And so we had to discover a dismount, a signal for them. That's what happens, with coaches. And so in order to come down so that you're clear and clean, and also the coaching life is a great life. We traveled the country in a van that we built, and I coached professionally while we did that. That was prior to launching this business, of course. And it's important when you're doing this work that you're that you're doing other things to clear your mind. Otherwise, you'll start to bring, the baggage from the call previous to the next call and so on. And so at my high water mark, personally, I had 63 clients I worked with. It was way too much.
Yeah.
And my favorite schedule was around 45. Most of our coaches are looking to be around somewhere between 15 and 30. Many of them still have a business, which I don't mind at all because it keeps them sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Let's say in this example, I'll give you, the company's doing well. The P&L is great and they've achieved their goals and they're measuring what, they've agreed upon, and they want to launch a new product into a new field, new industry. And the coach is not familiar with either, launching a new product or that industry. Would you bring in another coach? Would you switch coaches?
Yeah.
How does that work?
So your question is, how do you ensure fit for the objective? I'm really glad you asked this because coaching fit is everything. And a great fit today may not be a great fit into the future. I have a gentleman that I've coached for a decade, and it still works. But there are others that we coached for a season, and then it was time to bring in someone else. So one of the things that I would say to people is coaching's a partnership. We established this in the beginning, but I remind our coaches constantly, we check in all the time. So Garrett, what's working about what we're doing? If we were to adjust something in the way we're coaching together, what would it be? This isn't talking just about the expertise of the next objective. It's talking about, are we getting it done? Am I holding you accountable to what we agreed upon? If I were to change something, what would it be? And when you're having little check-in dialogues, which by the way, every leader of every company, I believe, could do that and improve the relationships of those they're coaching. Hey, if there was something that we adjusted in the way we're working together that would help you be more effective, what would it be? It doesn't in any way diminish the position I have in your life. And in my opinion, it increases what we're doing because we're dialing it in all the time. And so if we're doing that, the likelihood of fit goes up. Now, sometimes you lead your leader. So as a client, we really would hope that a client would reach out if they're struggling. We tell our coaches when they're checking in, if they sense that something isn't going well, or if the client's not achieving their objectives, because we measure, they're not achieving their objectives, then we need to check in. There are plenty of times it's time for a new coach. And our onboard process, we put a lot of effort into that because, this for us is the hill to die on. You get someone with the right match, and half of it, you've climbed half the way to the summit. Mm-hmm. But our coaches, I think, understand, and I think that they do a really good job of leaning on others when there's an expertise. So let's say that I'm coaching you and you're going to launch something new, and we have a great coaching fit and relationship. Well, maybe me not being your coach maybe that's not the option to consider. Maybe we should just add someone to our team. Maybe we're going to go get this person to come on for a little bit and help us through this particular moment. There are times where it's important that someone has experience in that particular business. But truth be known, that's more the exception than the rule.
Yeah.
A coach that does what we do needs to understand business and needs to get to it quickly. But I've had, can I share a story? Mm-hmm. So I remember kind of early on, and when I launched this business, I had just completed my 10,000th coaching call, and I was mentioning to you early that in our space, Malcolm Gladwell did a good job of convincing us all that we're brilliant at 10,000. But in coaching, it's different to me because all I need is a new business and a new relationship, and I'm brand new again. And I even at my experience level, I feel all the nerves and everything because it's important.
Yeah.
And I had a gentleman that approached me, and he had a business. It was a timeshare with Learjet aircraft. Mm-hmm. I've coached a bunch of businesses, and some really big, but I've never coached that business. I mean, this dude was fascinating. And there was a lot at risk, and it wasn't doing well. And so the question was, how do you make money? So I just want you to observe this because in the beginning of our conversation, there's a lot of pain points in his business. He's as high driver as you get, and he's hurting. And I can spend our time, looking like an authority, and it won't serve either of us. Mm-hmm. What does your business look like? That's coaching, by the way. I went straight to discovery, and we had a great discovery. We discovered that that in all the facets of his business, there was one in particular that had the least amount of risk and the highest amount of return. He had 4 fueling stations around the country, and he discovered that they require the least amount of human capital to make them profitable, and that they were doing really well. So, in a case like that, that's an example of a coach's job is to get really clear on what you're doing, what's working, where you want to go, what the challenges are, and then be the one that helps hold us on that course.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. It's very flexible, right? You can assess weekly and figure out if the fit's still there, or add some different fuel to the fire. As far as like your clientele, you've mentioned you do work with some big ones, but is it startups? Is it PowerPoints and Dreams? Is it enterprise? Is it Series A, Series B? Where do you guys hang out?
So if I was coaching you, I would tell you to pick a niche. And we have completely failed at that. So you name an industry and we're coaching in it. So we have a lot of startups, and we've had a lot of people we're coaching that ran their primary business and went to startup. I have a gentleman I'm working with right now that's preparing his company for sale. And but we've got a gentleman that owns medical clinics. We have a national fitness franchise. We have just almost anyone in the service trades that you can imagine, and we do have quite a few people in the tech space. And so it's one of those things where we thought I really thought we would be in the entrepreneurs in the service industry. However, we just found our way out. And my business partner wrote a really great book called The One Thing. I don't know if you've heard of The One Thing, but I have. He's written that book, and we that gets into a lot of companies. That gets a lot of people interested, and so we've been talking about coaching. We also train, and we do a lot of training in that space, and we use that material. We have partners in business that are really exceptional at that, and
Gotcha. There's certain industries that I respect and am curious about, but I'd rather dig ditches than work in, try to solve the problems for, or even coach, right? If I even had the capability, like logistics and making sure this package or this shipment gets there. I'd rather dig ditches.
Me too.
So, are there certain industries, certain businesses that you just love and you're drawn to, like a moth to a flame? And are there others that are like, I can't, even if I know what I'm doing, I can't talk one more time about this problem?
Well, so let's talk about a logistics company. Inside of a logistics company, you've got the thing they do, and then you've got the business of the thing they do. And so if we go in there talking about logistics, then we're behaving like a consultancy.
Yeah.
And there's a place for consultancies, and there's a place for logistic consultancies. That's not who we are. So what we would be doing is going in and working with leaders on how they're leading their company and creating clarity in the week-to-week objectives. We have lots of diversity in coaches. It's one of the ways we would match people is based on where their expertise are. We have a coach we had a company that reached out to us through our sister company that is in charge of The One Thing through their podcast. And these guys, they're called Weichert Company. They're in downtown New York City, and they manage they take care of all the maintenance of New York City high rises.
Ooh.
I know.
Pass.
Well, but again, once you kind of pull the curtain back and here's the truth. Behind the curtain, everybody struggles with something. And so once you pull the curtain back and start digging into a business, what you have are a bunch of a fourth generation, by the way. These guys bought it. We helped them kind of through this process, but they bought it, from their parents, and they're doing exciting things with it. But you've got a group of people that they know how to do their business, but they're new at leading people. They discovered that they really don't have systems for hiring and then for leading people based on their natural behaviors. And so even though these companies do what they do is really diverse, the needs of an organization with humans in it, we have a lot of commonalities business to business.
Yeah.
The humans are tough even on the best day.
Yeah.
But man, when you can lead someone in their language, everyone's life is better. And it's not easy. It isn't easy. It's not easy for anyone. It's not easy for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine, you're interacting with folks who are doing things well and need improvement here.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to look at your business probably daily, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the tweaks you guys have applied, mini pivots, big pivots over the years that have impacted your business model?
Oh man. Well, like any business, learning how to discover our community has been a challenge and a unique challenge. And it's the reason we started our podcast. I'll go on a limb and guess that's maybe part of the purpose of your podcast. So finding the community, but bringing the right community together is important to us. So in the beginning, we did a lot of trainings and kind of went around the country and spoke at different events, and we've really found our way to the entrepreneurial space, and for that, one client leads to another, and so I think we've done a good job of growing semi-organically, but that's always the challenge. And then listen, here's the challenge that is not unique to us. It's true for everyone. How do you engage a workforce? And the recent Pew research is pretty telling in terms of this generation. And so we like to create a lot of opportunities, and these are things that sound great from the stage, and they require a lot of work. And one of the mottos we adopted very early on was, we're going to build and run our business the way we coach and train others to build and run their business. So we use all the tools that we're doing, and we have a reset dialogue that we use for when people get out of sync with one another. And I'm imagining that this all sounds really extremely well and put together, and some days it is. But on the days that it isn't, we get in a room and work through it and remind each other that we're coaches and that we don't check our coaching skills at the door, that we work through things with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you guys have a good angle on things, and anytime you're interacting with humans,
mm-hmm.
it's always each day is going to be different. Each hour, each half hour is going to be different, and you'll probably never be bored.
No, you won't be bored. However, there are a few things that can be done that increase the likelihood that your company will run at the cadence that you want it to. And those are things that we often focus on. We have a whole series called Leverage Leadership. It's a course that we do, and it includes that behavioral assessment that I was telling you about. And so a fair amount of the coaching will be on that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'll reveal. Can I reveal some like a little inside coaching tip on working with high drivers?
Yeah.
So a lot of your leadership is going to be that, right? They're going to be high drivers, and I really have incredible respect for those on the front line. But it's funny when they come in to the coaching relationships, like they're daring you to teach them something. What can you show me? Even if they've engaged the dialogue.
Mm-hmm. And
what's interesting about that is you start going into the questions like, talk to me about your direct reports, and let me see the role profiles in which you selected them. And what is the cadence of the weekly meeting? Now, some of them, I'm not asking to trap them. Many of them have great role profiles, but what happens is you'll hire someone in a role, they'll do well in the role, you like them, so you move them to the next role, and it's not a match.
Yeah.
And so for us, mapping internal success by making sure that that people are in the right role, and that your roles are lined up with the objectives of the future of your company, it just solves so many things, and it's really fun too. And so it's kind of enjoyable when you get someone that's just daring you to teach them something, and you kind of bring it back on them, start walking through their system. People let the guard down, pretty quickly, which is great, because then we can talk, and then they realize there's no judgment on our part, and we're not coming in like we know everything, but together, we're gonna face this head on and figure out some things. We've had some really cool turnarounds.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's really enjoyable.
Very rewarding what you guys do day in and day out. If you're painted into a corner and you had to decide whether it's more productive to do what you guys do on a Zoom call or in a trout stream, which would you choose?
Oh, always a trout stream.
Okay. So if you hadn't thought of that idea before, you can just write me a check.
Yeah, done. Are you asking, do we coach on Zoom or do we coach over the phone?
Yeah, or in person sometimes.
Yeah. Well, we'll coach in person. I mean, oftentimes the coach isn't, because we're matching with the best fit. Geographic location of the coach isn't really important. And we have some coaches that coach via Zoom. They like to be face-to-face. I don't, personally. That doesn't mean that on a call we won't get on Zoom and share a screen and look at a thing. The coaching scorecard I mentioned to you, we start every call, both of us. I can see if you're in there, and both of us start there. However, the reason, just me personally, and by the way, those coaches that coach on Zoom, they have great success.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to what's going to work best in that relationship. But for me, you talk differently than if you're not looking at one another. Mm-hmm. And, a coach is going to pick up the cues. Like, I can tell if you're not listening, if you're checking an email. Yeah. And I'll just ask you, what are you looking at? What are you looking at right now? And, but it's done both ways. And I'm a walk and talker, Garrett. I walk. On a coaching day, I would track, like, everyone has tracking on the wrist. I'd walk 10 miles a day.
Yeah.
I walk and think.
Yeah, I do too. Especially if it's not a fun phone call. Let's get up and walk around for sure. All right, very cool. Well, I'm sure we could continue for a long time hearing these stories and the successes that's derived from them. But thank you so much, Abe, for joining the Meat and Potatoes podcast today. Appreciate your time.
Oh, really my pleasure. I appreciate you having us down.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah.